Roll call, please,
Yes.
Madam Clerk. Yeah. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Florian.
Present.
Alderman Hayes.
Present.
Alderman Bolton.
Aye, present.
Alderman Guzman. Alderman Martinez.
Present.
Alderman Felix.
Present.
Alderman Newsom.
Present.
Alderman Turner.
Present.
Alderman Donnerworth.
Present.
Mayor Taylor.
Present.
All accounted
Now
for.
6:38, and we're calling the meeting to order. We will get through as many of these as we can because we want to stick to having city council still start at 7. And I will give you a bathroom break before. Item C, can I have a first and a second to approve the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from December 16th, 2024? I need a first and a second.
First.
Second.
Alderman Martinez and Alderman Newsom. Roll call, please.
It's going to be a Donnerworth.
Yeah.
Alderman Florian.
Aye.
Alderman Hayes.
Aye.
Alderman Bolton.
Aye.
Alderman Guzman. Alderman Martinez.
Aye.
Alderman Felix.
Aye.
Alderman
Aye.
Alderman Turner.
Aye.
Alderman Donnerworth.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Can I have a first and a second to item D, a motion to approve the minutes of the closed executive session of Committee of the Whole on December 16th, 2024? I need a first.
So moved. Second.
Alderman Florian, Alderman Bolton was the second. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Florian.
Aye.
Alderman Hayes.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Aye.
Alderman Bolton. Alderman Guzman. Alderman Martinez.
Aye.
Alderman Felix.
Aye.
Alderman Newsom.
Aye.
Alderman Turner.
Aye.
Alderman Donnerworth.
Aye.
Motion passed, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 3, old business. The first one, can I have a first and a second to the ordinance?
First.
Alderman Felix,
Second.
Alderman Martinez, and this is an ordinance amending the various provision of the Waukegan Liquor Control Ordinance and Ordinance 180-46 regarding a Class C1 license. This was sponsored by Alderman Guzman and placed back on the agenda after motion to reconsider. I'm sorry, I missed audience time. Is anybody here for Committee of the Whole? I didn't see anybody, that's why. Okay.
Nobody signed up.
Okay, so back to item A. Do we have a slide on that? This one? Okay,
There's a number of slides, but they're the same ones that have been shown when this was first considered.
okay. So, I can't remember, somebody, I don't know if it was Alderman Florian asked me about this before, about, this was basically when they had the ability to, when we limited the number of gas stations that could have these.
Right, but this was also to allow it to not come to city council for approval. It was the alderman of the ward can give the approval, if I understand correctly, which I think is a really bad idea. And the city staff is tasked with making sure the application is complete and proper. And this was already voted down, but then Alderman Bolton asked to reconsider it.
Yes.
Okay. So my questions would be, how does that play out when it is a violation of, when they end up with a violation later?
They would have to go through the violation process, which, and we would take them before the administrative hearing officer, and if you're talking about a revocation, then they would have, the ability to appeal to the Illinois Liquor Commission, and then once the Illinois Liquor Commission rules, they have the ability to appeal to the circuit court from there.
Well, since the alderman would have given them the ability to have it unbeknownst to the rest of everybody, should they be required to be at that adjudication hearing then?
The are you saying we're requiring them, basically subpoenaing them to sit at the hearing?
I'm just asking, like, what would be, since no one would have known that they had the license except the alderman, what would be the alderman's obligation when something went awry?
Well, I mean, what this basically does is that instead of the city council having to create a new liquor license and vote on a liquor license to be created for a transfer, what this basically says is that it could be, a liquor license could be basically created simply, well, I have to look back at the actual language here.
If I remember, I thought, if I'll just jump in, Stu, while you're reading that, it was that they would still apply. There's a current liquor license holder, they're looking to sell their business. The purchaser of the business would still apply for the license, but would not have to come before city council to get approval from city council to operate under that license. So we would effect not be terminating a license, then creating a new license. We would just be continuing on with the old license.
Thank you for the reminder.
It was
This is-
grandfathered.
Yeah, well, no, this is actually this is a peculiarity of Illinois liquor law. They would not have the same license, but the number of available licenses would stay the same. There would be an available license that would be held for them, basically, and the new owner would have to get a license, but the automatic revocation and reduction would not apply in this particular case.
And they
right?
still wouldn't have to come before city
They
council.
would not have to come before city council, but they would have to get their own liquor license. They would have to go through staff.
So this would mean that, well, I think because there's some confusion with people, explain exactly what C1 licenses that would affect, because not everybody understands what a C1 is.
The C1 licenses are specifically I think there are 6 existing ones. I don't know if we have anyone from the licensing division here right now, but there were originally when there was the C1 licenses were created to allow certain gas stations to have, to sell not only beer and wine, but also liquor. Most gas stations in Waukegan can only sell beer and wine. To also sell liquor, you have to have a C1 license. The city council created that particular license class and said that there shall only be, at the time, I believe 9, and as those went away, no more could be created. The issue is that some of these have been sold over time, and so there are really 2 parts to this ordinance, and we can go through the different parts of it. The first part is not just for C1. It would apply actually to all existing licenses, is what we were just talking about, that if a bona fide purchaser who applies for a license of the same classification would not have to come back to city council to get a new license created. As for the C1 class licenses that, I guess this says 7, I can't remember if it's 7 or 6, will remain available, but shall be limited to the locations listed on Exhibit A, provided, however, that no C1 license will be granted to a person or entity without first applying and qualifying for the local license. Right now, C1 licenses cannot be transferred. In this case, what this would allow is C1 licenses to be transferred. So there are a number of parts to this ordinance, and I could go through part by part on this.
So the
if you want.
history of why this came about, and I think Alderman Newsom will confer with me on what I remember of this, was because we had a lot of neighborhoods complaining that a lot of these small bottles that were in gas stations were accumulating around their homes. And so it was initially done, the back history of it was so that, okay, we won't take the licenses away, but as they sell, there won't be new ones. We would eventually get rid of all of them. Okay, Alderman Felix?
Just want to make sure I point out, something that I do hear, which is I think it makes a lot of the makes sense, and this would be regards to making us feel more safe for making this decision, is that they still have to go through a process of us doing a background check. Is that correct, Stu?
Anyone, and okay, once again, so if we're just talking about the general
To like transfer.
assumption of ownership and operations, yes, an applicant would still have to go through the full liquor license application process. They would have to go through the background check, and they would have to do, they would have to submit all of the paperwork that any other applicant would. The difference is that they would not go through the step that we have here at council, which is when either a new applicant comes in or someone who is buying a licensed property has to do, where they come here and basically say, I would like a license to be made available for me, assuming that I qualify.
Mayor?
Yes, there will be confusion on that, though, I will add to that. Alderman Florian?
So based on what Stu just said, everything will be the same, except now the onus is basically on our staff to go through the application, make sure there's not any problems. And how many times have we had someone come all the way to this podium to get a liquor license, and we find out there's something in their packet that either they aren't allowed to have a license, or they've had, I just am very uncomfortable with putting that decision onto our staff. Not that they're not capable of making it, but that's not what we pay them for. We pay them to process the papers. We're the ones that are supposed to have the onus on us of deciding what's best for our community. I'm curious, Alderman Bolton, you voted no for this originally, but now you've asked to reconsider. Can you explain to me what made you change your mind about it?
Well, like Alderman Felix reiterated the fact, we're not negating those steps that would ensure safety as well as allowing them to be monitored. It's just when they're grandfathered in, they've already gone through the process, not that we're trying to impose more work or responsibility, allow me finish, on them, but this particular one, and getting so many calls about this, I changed my vote. That's the
But
position.
you keep saying grandfathered in. There's
This
nothing being
particular, there's
fathered
one
in.
that is grandfathered in.
What is she referring to? Do we know?
That?
I think the original intent of this liquor ordinance was to eliminate altogether being able to buy liquor in the gas stations. You could just buy beer and wine. If they sold it, that license was eliminated. You could not create a new one. So what is trying to happen now is you want them to be able, you're not saying create a new one, but in essence, you are continuing it because you don't want the elimination of the liquor licenses to be able to get liquor in the gas stations. It goes against the original intent of this ordinance.
I guess what some people are confused about is, on one hand, we complain about all these liquor bottles all over neighborhoods from some of these gas stations, and our intent years ago was to get rid of it, and now we want to bring it back. So that's up to you guys. You make the decision on that, but
If I
I'm
may.
clarifying what Alderman Newsom is saying. Alderman Hayes was next.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Alderman Newsom, for reminding us kind of the history of this. All right, a couple of things. This is an interesting attempt to just backdoor giving gas station owners the right to sell liquor. If you have a problem with the ordinance that took away the right to sell liquor, then take it up with that specific ordinance and seek to modify that. Don't set a horrible precedent by stating that applicants for these businesses no longer have to come before city council. Because if we make it for C1 licenses, someone's going to make a motion to do it for other licenses. And it is just a matter of time before no applicant for a liquor license has to come before city council.
Let me be clear. The way this is written, is that the bona fide transfer provision applies to all liquor licenses.
That's even worse.
Already there.
So that means that my worst case scenario has already come true. A purchaser or someone who wants to have a liquor license in the city of Waukegan, that is, let's be clear, a privilege. It is not a right, it is a privilege. And with that privilege comes great responsibility. And with that responsibility, people should not have an issue coming before us, standing at that podium and explaining themselves, their background check, their history, and their qualifications. What message are we sending to people in the community if we're saying that anyone who wants to have a liquor license can just submit some paperwork to the city and potentially it's going to be stamped for approval without coming before the alderman, either the alderman of the ward or the other aldermen that are up here? There, we have to answer. I said this before. We have to answer to the members of the community that have issues with the establishment selling liquor. In order for us to answer to them, the establishments themselves have to answer to us. We have to be able to have a dialogue with both sides. We have to approve them, and if we make a bad decision on that, then we have to answer to the community. But nonetheless, the final decision should be ours, not one alderman. That is ripe for misappropriation and corruption. That should absolutely not happen. No singular alderman should have the say on any particular issues. But with that, I'm curious to know what these petitioners have to hide, or what the aldermen seeking to approve this think that the petitioners might have to hide. They shouldn't have any issue coming before us and explaining themselves. And I'm telling you what, I've said it before, it is a slippery, slippery slope. There is no reason that we should allow this to happen with a C1 license or any other liquor license in the city. Just because I'm not one to say this is the way it's always been done, so that's the way it should be done going forward. But for a liquor license, Alderman Bolton, if you have an issue with someone who wants to open a liquor store in the first ward, and you say there's too many liquor stores, or you don't want a certain owner to buy up all the liquor stores, or you don't want an owner who has a bad history who got out of the liquor business and is now getting back into it to be able to just slide in under the radar and get his liquor license, then you can't vote for this. You can't be in favor of this. We need transparency. Everyone up here is always talking about transparency. It's a buzzword. Well, this is a prime opportunity for transparency. You want a liquor license? Stand at the podium and tell us why.
I will say one quick thing before I let Alderman Turner talk, is when we have a bad actor, it takes generally 18 months to 2 years to get them out because they appeal to the state. It's a process, not to count the amount of attorney fees it costs us, because I will tell you, this administration has done more on removing liquor licenses that were bad actors, but I can tell you the amount that we have spent on doing it and the amount of time that it has taken to do it. I meet once a week with attorneys on settling these and how to go through the process, so it's not easy to get rid of them once they're there. Alderman Turner and then Alderman Felix, and then we'll do the vote.
Decline. Go ahead and let Alderman Felix speak.
So just want to make sure I point out. So there's actually two things going on in this specific ordinance. So because I don't want to just put. There's some good arguments for those two things. Is there any way to amend the part where, well, I think this is probably you're still against this, Alderman Hayes. But is there any way to amend the part where the transfers don't have to come in front of the council? And because this one separates the C1 license. This is the C1 license, and then there's the transfer part where they still will go through the background check. They'll still go through all the due diligence that staff would do either way for whether it be a transfer or not. Is there any way to amend it and separate that, or is the council willing to are okay with that? I mean, what are your thoughts, guys?
Definitely advocate that, yeah.
I forgive me, I'm not clear. What do you mean, separate, what two elements are we separating?
I think I can get to what Alderman Felix is saying. When you look at the actual ordinance as it's written, there are 3 exhibits that have different amendments to different parts of the liquor code. Exhibit A deals with the addition of the assumption of operation or ownership of a licensed premises. If you get rid of that, Exhibit A is the one that we're talking about that would remove the requirement of a bona fide purchaser to come back before the city council. Exhibit C, well, and then Exhibit B is a special fee a special extra fee for people who are going through that. So if you got rid of A and B, because those two go hand in hand, all you would have left is Exhibit C. What Exhibit C says is that the number of Class C1 licenses will remain 7, there will be 7 available ones tied to the current locations, but they can be transferred. They would still have to come back. If you got rid of A and B, they would still have to come back before the city council. Right now, no C1 license can be transferred, and they basically just kind of amortize over time. So if they're closed down, if they're sold, then they just keep reducing down. So in short, if you want to do what you're asking, Alderman Felix, it would be basically a motion to just proceed with the amendment to Section 3-55.
I have a question on that real quick. So even though they allowed, years ago, we allowed 7 of them to stay in business, does that make their businesses more valuable to sell because they can transfer those licenses? I mean, and how did they suddenly get that privilege when that was never the intent to begin with? The intent was to get rid of
I
them.
assume that any license that allows you to sell a broader range of goods than a narrower range probably has more value. And why the original ordinance was written as it was, I think you, Alderman Newsom and Mayor, you've talked about that. But right now, if you sell or you close a C1 license, the number of available C1 licenses keeps decreasing. There used to be 9, now there are 7. And if this doesn't pass, eventually those 7 might amortize down to 3 or 4, or they would just keep diminishing.
I comment regarding Alderman Felix's suggestion, if I understand it. First of all, I'll just say, I don't think anyone's going to say that the city of Waukegan is better off, will be better off with more gas stations selling liquor licenses or selling liquor, or that we'll be better off if applicants don't have to come before city council. Nor are we worse off because less gas stations are serving liquor. I think that from my position, I want to honor the intent of and the integrity of the prior council that passed the ordinance that said, hey, we're getting rid of these small liquor bottles, but we're also getting rid of that liquor at those gas stations. They had a reason for doing it, and I think the city's doing just fine without it. I don't see why we're making an exception for C1 licenses or an exception that would ultimately transfer to all liquor license holders. So I appreciate Alderman Felix extending an olive branch here, but I'm just adamantly opposed to this from the jump. I think the statute stays the same, the ordinance stays the same. I don't think that there's an exception for these owners, and I think anybody who wants a license and the privilege of holding a license in the city should come before the city council.
I'd like to speak very briefly.
yeah.
I know we want to wrap it up, but you raised an interesting point or question in that, excuse me, in that the value of the business is decreasing, and essentially what we're doing is decreasing the value of a business. Pick a station. Guy has this liquor license, his business, because of the liquor license or including the liquor license, his business is valued at $500,000. He wants to sell and get out. He wants to retire. He wants to sell his business, but he can't sell it for the $500,000 of value he has in that business that he's built up over 20 years or so. He can only sell it for $300,000 or $250,000 because he cannot include that, or that liquor license at that location cannot be transferred or will no longer exist.
Fine.
Yeah,
Like
but
every
but the value of the business is predicated in large part upon that liquor license that we're now going to say you can sell your business, but the new owner can't. You can't get the $500,000.
He knew that when he bought it, though. We told him when he bought the license originally that he wasn't going to be able to transfer that to someone else. So that's on him that he didn't have the ability to do that, not us.
I just raised a point for awareness and consideration. If you're going to devalue someone's business, what might be there.
I don't think it's devaluing. I think it's giving certain people an advantage over others, because those that sell beer and wine now can only sell their business for X amount, and because you've had this license that was supposed to expire at a certain point, now you get to sell your business for more. I think that is making an elite group of 7 people kind of give an extra boost to their, what they can sell their businesses for. So
Good
I see it
point.
from the opposite.
Just quickly, I just want to, can we just go ahead and put this on hold for the next, and keep moving forward here? We can run out of time.
We're only going to do one more. Yeah,
Plus Guzman's not here, and he's like the sponsor for this one.
Well, I think Alderman Bolton was the sponsor for
Committee
it.
meeting.
In collaboration with Alderman Guzman. So if we want to hold it over for further discussion, I
Excellent.
recommend that.
let's do the next one. I don't think there's as much controversy on this one. Can I have a first and a second to the motion? Actually, this is,
Twen-
So move.
I'm sorry, Mayor, your mic's not on.
sorry. We'll just hold all this over to the next committee of the whole, which will be at the next city council meeting, and we'll do these 3 topics. Okay, can I have a
Mayor?
motion to?
Well, I don't know how, Alderman Martinez.
Can we just quickly listen to the next one real quick, and then before we,
There's going to be a long discussion on that one. It's going to be a long one. And
Alderman Guzman's not here, and he's the sponsor.
This is the Class P one.
right, this is for the Euphoria.
give it till 7:10, and then that's it. Okay? That's the entire discussion on it. I need a first and a second to it.
First,
Alderman Martinez, second.
Second.
Alderman Turner. And this is an ordinance amending Section 3-10 of the Waukegan Code of Ordinances regarding a Class P coffee shop license. So for those of you who don't understand what this is, there's a coffee shop that wants to serve hard liquor, meaning Bailey's in their coffee and that kind of thing. The issue with it is the time of day. Are you going to be serving that at 7 a.m.? Because you're going to have everybody coming in here. Every nightclub is going to want to suddenly be a coffee shop first thing in the morning.
Mayor,
So-
Mayor, would you like me to summarize what
Yeah.
the current ordinance is, and then we can have Alderman Martinez talk about the changes that he wants? So the Class P ordinance is a specific ordinance that was created for coffee shops. There are no current Class P licenses. Well, actually, there is one. Euphoria just got it. And it has has some very specific conditions that are not on other liquor licenses, because the idea is that this was much more for coffee shops. So the business must be open by 7 a.m., must stay open for 10 hours. The primary business must be coffee, tea, and beverages. They must sell food items. They can only sell liquor between 4 and 10 p.m. on weekdays and 2 to 10 p.m. on weekends. Can only sell beer and wine only, and only 1 drink may be served per customer. And the idea is that the coffee shop is not a bar. It's someplace where you could maybe, if you want to have 1 alcoholic beverage at night as appropriate, that's what this was designed for. Alderman Martinez, if you'd like to discuss, we'll go to the next slide and you can discuss what your proposal is.
before I move forward, I just want, I know the mayor had mentioned some liquor at 7 o'clock. What their plan is part of their ingredients, like the daily, that's part of their drink, that just, their morning drink that they have. Also, they're planning on selling mimosas. Everyone has had a mimosa in the morning. I've had one. So that's the reason why. But it's not as they're going to start giving out rum and cokes first thing in the morning, 7 o'clock. That I can guarantee you. Now, what I would like to request is the committee is consider amending to have spirits to be served on the premises in addition to beer and wine, and also to allow it to be served at 7 o'clock in the morning. Then after 4 on weekends, then 2 p.m. on weekends.
Question on that, it says 7 a.m. to 2, is that 2 a.m.?
That's, yeah, 2 a.m. on Fridays and Saturday only, because that's when they would be open. This is when they have, and it's not every Friday, Saturday, it's when they have jazz night or some kind of venue that they're planning on having there at the Euphoria. Also, to change, I know right now the ordinance says 1 drink per, see if we can change that, because the way it stands now, the P lights, they only can have 1 drink. I see we can change that they have more than 1 drink. So it makes sense.
In the morning?
No, I'm talking about at night, when they're able to sell, the weekends.
'Cause some people work
Also-
night shifts.
How do we monitor that, though? I have a question, Mayor. Are you done, Alderman Martinez?
Alderman Florian?
So I've been in Euphoria a couple times now. It is a great place. I encourage everyone to check it out. The food is excellent. The vibe is excellent. This is going to completely change this. And those of you that have been up here for a while know that when we give someone a liquor license till 2 in the morning, guess what? It turns into a nightclub. We've seen that numerous times. And if I hear one thing, I hear it all the time. Waukegan has too much liquor. As a matter of fact, last time I was in Euphoria, I struck up with a conversation with a young lady that was sitting there studying, doing her homework. I said, so this place wants to have a liquor license till 2 in the morning. She's like, no, not them too. And they've got, what, like 10 parking spaces at the most? I know someone who lives right down the street. I asked him how he felt about it. He's like, no way. He goes, I do not want them open till 2 in the morning. It's a teeny tiny place. I mean, it has so much going for it. I hate to let us allow them to turn it into something it's not, and to put one more liquor license out there that's going to be creating another nightclub that we can't monitor because we don't have anyone out doing liquor licenses at 2 in the morning.
I just feel that, I mean, it is a very well-established, it is family-owned, and I know Maribel personally, and I also know the family. They're very responsible
But families
people.
don't stay out until 2 a.m.
Well, but I understand that, but the fact is that we have some people out there who get liquor license, like you said, Alderman Florian, they abuse that privilege. I feel that they are very responsible enough. I feel that they will oblige by our rules, and they'll be part of making more successful. I don't think that we have to monitor them to the fact, but the simple fact is that I have high trust in them.
But
and I think
that's
that given
one,
the opportunity-
one person. The next group that comes in wanting a Class P, are they going to be as responsible? And then are you going to let Starbucks do this? Are you going to let Dunkin' Donuts do this? Because they're also coffee, and, you know, it's not about setting an ordinance for one person or one business. It's about looking at it from across the board.
I understand that, but when you're talking about Starbucks, you're talking about those are franchises and corporate. This is a family-owned, respectful business that, if given the opportunity, I'm sure. And me, I live right across the street. I'm the type of alderman. I'm boots to the ground. I go in there and I make sure that things are done. You know, I just don't stand back and say, okay, let's just go ahead and give you another liquor license. And I know there's a great deal of responsibility that goes along with this, but I have every trust. If they give me the opportunity, then they can, maybe this is something new. We've never seen nothing like this in Waukegan, a family-owned coffee shop that wants to cater to the community. You know, this is something that we should be embracing and give them the opportunity before we start to play execution and say, hey, you know, no, we're basing it on what we already know about what goes on in Waukegan, but given the opportunity, because this is a family-owned business, because they are responsible, because they are committed, and I'm committed
Okay,
to
well,
make
let's
sure
take
that
the vote on this,
I'm
and-
committed to make sure that this thing is done right.
This is
then
the
I give it-
amended.
They should be given the opportunity.
Okay, let's take the vote.
Can I ask
Okay?
a quick question? Alderman Martinez,
Yeah.
I appreciate you going to bat for this business. I'd be doing the same thing. Although my biggest concern here is exactly what was raised about it potentially turning into a nightclub. Is there a possibility that they'd be willing to take the hours that are in the initial ordinance, which I think are from 4 p.m. until 10 p.m. On the weekday, or maybe that's the weekends, whatever the initial hours are, and not 7 a.m. till 2 a.m.? I don't know why a coffee shop needs to be selling alcohol at 7 a.m. in the morning. And it seems like if the intent of a Class B license was to be primarily a coffee shop, then they would have no issue selling coffee throughout the day and then liquor from that 4 p.m. hour until 10 p.m. And then potentially we head off the issue of it becoming a nightclub or an after-hours spot, and it operates a little bit more like a restaurant that might close down at 10 p.m. Is that something that might be workable?
I can most definitely see if they'll be willing. I mean, I can most definitely ask them. It wouldn't hurt.
And then who is going to be covering all these hours? It's not going to be the family. There's going to have to be more employees to do that.
Make a motion to seat Alderman Guzman.
Okay, can I have a first and a second to seat Alderman Guzman?
I so move.
Alderman Florian, second? Oh, I'm sorry. It was Alderman Bolton, I'm sorry. Who was the second? I need a second to seat Alderman Guzman.
I'll suit it. I'll second.
Felix? Okay, are we taking the vote on item C?
I do have a question, because Alderman Martinez, you had said that you also wanted to remove the single serving limitation? Yes. Okay, so that's on 9D. That's not reflected in what is on board docs, but it would be basically removing the first sentence of section 9D, the sale of more than one single serving of bottle of wine or beer to each patron during a single point of sale transaction is prohibited.
Are you going to put a limit on it, or just leave it open-ended that they can serve as much as they want?
That I would have to, see.
Okay, so are we holding this over then?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
One second. You guys were talking about the Euphoria
Yes.
license, right? I'd like to make another change to the amend that. Okay, like the
Okay,
mayor.
well, we're holding it over, so you can do
Okay.
that at another time. Can I have a motion to adjourn? A first and a second.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Alderman Turner, second. Alderman
Aye.
Florian. You've got 5 minutes, and we're coming back no later than 7:20. I need the aldermen in their seats.